Hi guys, Luton here, and today I've got a bit of Damavand peek for you. Now, the interesting thing about this today is, as you'll see, we start off with a fairly regular round, fairly straightforward. You can see me and the guys here. We're making our way down the hill. I've got Fireman with me. He's a new guy that I met recently, really good sort of objective player, so it's great to meet people like that, get on board. And Josh the Ripper, he's in my clan. Don't get to play with him particularly often, but he's a good team player as well. So you'll see that we're starting off here. Seem to have very little opposition. Halley's not coming in. I find out that I've forgotten that I had the M320 instead of the M320 Smoke, which is what I actually usually want to have on this base. So I'm making a straight line into B, and this is a good way to just get in, just get straight on with it. Look, jump straight in. I was waiting for some enemy here. I was thinking, where the hell are they? Have a little look out this window. Doesn't seem to be anybody here. I'm the objective. And I'm going to take a position here where I can hope to cover anybody coming back in. And so you think, yeah, bit unopposed at the moment. And then still, I was thinking, where the hell is everybody? Where are they? Where's the whole team? Well, I think I have a fairly good idea that basically, you'll see why in a mo. Arming A as well. There's nobody here. What is going on? And then I was looking at the player count. Now look right here. There are so few people on the other team right here. Look, 6, and we got like, what, 8 or something? Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change myself over, because this team have got no chance of winning. They got no chance of winning at all. I'm going to put myself over on the other team because of how few people there are here. And we'll see, maybe the server will fill up as we go along, which is what I was hoping, maybe get like a good game. Now this is not something that I do all the time, okay? This is not like a particularly regular thing. One thing that's been happening is when I've been hopping on, yeah, my server's not always full all the time anymore. You know, I often go in the evening, there's nobody playing, so I don't play. I'll play somewhere else if there's nowhere to play with. If there's people on, I'll play with them. If not, I'll play somewhere else. Or maybe I'll start to get my server working. But I was like, this is such a rollover. Like, you know, it's a steamroll. And these guys, they're not going to fight back. They're not going to give us any kind of good game. If they can't even get to the objective on the first base, you know, this is just not going to happen. It's not going to be a decent sort of round at all. So I was like, okay, I need to do something here. I need to do something to turn it around, make this a decent game for us in some respect. And, you know, I was like, yeah, you know, I'll try and put up a bit of a fight towards the enemy here. And I tell you what, I've been playing in some public games this week as well, because it's good to play in public games. It's good playing public games solo as well sometimes, because I think often people that play on YouTube, people that play in squads regularly, they often forget how it is for individuals playing, and I always try to sort of mix it up a bit. I try to play by myself, I try to play with team members, and you know, I generally sort of try and get an overall experience, because it's important when you're making videos and sort of things like this. I knew I was going down there, but if I didn't, if I turned around to get on Josh there, I wouldn't have got anybody, so at least I got one guy. Again, look, we've actually had another player off our team leave here as well. But, so as I say, it's about getting an overview, and that helps me draw my conclusions when I'm thinking about what to talk about with tactics and stuff like that, because it gives you a better overall picture. It helps me kind of have a more rounded sort of knowledge base when I'm thinking, okay, tactically, where should we go, where should we do this? It helps if you try and understand how it is to be individual as well as working with a squad, because people always say, oh, but Luton, you know, that would never happen, it will only work if you've got a squad with you, etc, etc. Well, you know, I try to base my kind of thinking of things on a whole sort of range of experience, not just playing in a tight squad. For sure, sometimes it's going to be more beneficial, but it's not always the way to go. Now look right here, this base got taken so fast again that we just couldn't get up there in time. I didn't make a massive push for it because I was already taking a little bit of fire. They cleared through in the base, but what I am trying to do right here is just slow them down, okay? I want to give our guys a little bit of, you know, effort to try and sort of set up, or maybe I want to show them that we can actually turn things around, we can actually fight back, we can take these guys down. So I'm putting a little bit of fire and just doing a little bit of work on these guys right here. But, you know, it leads me on to something else as well, which is, it frustrates me how imbalanced teams can be sometimes. It really does. And, you know, people are going to laugh at that and say, well, Luton, on your server often is so imbalanced, blah, blah, blah. I try my very best on the server to have balanced games, because it's frustrating as hell when you're playing on a team and, you know, it's just imbalanced. And I try my best, but people need to understand that sometimes when you're a server admin, etc., or if you have people on your server that are admins, you can't balance a game all the time. You just can't do it. You have to sort of look at each game, see how it works, and then after that, by the way, I opened my parachute a bit early here, but I didn't want to kill myself on the rocks, so I was like, I'll play it safe, you know. And after all the game, and look, you know, I stayed in the round 12 and 2 right here. The rest of my team are under what, 1s and 2s, and I was just, you know, you stay in the round, try and put up a bit of a fight, wait for more people to join. Maybe you'll have a decent round, maybe not. You know, if the round really sucks, if it really doesn't go your way, well, you can always leave. And, you know, sometimes you are going to leave. Sometimes you're just going to be like, you know, this is pointless. I've been in games this week, this night, this last few evenings, where things have just been so bad. I've been like, you know, I have tried, but this is going nowhere. You know the kind of games I'm talking about. The kind of games where you start, you know, you get up, you die. You spawn on someone, you die. You spawn on a base, you die. You try to leave your base, you die. When you're in a game that's so one-sided like that, there's no point staying in that game. You're not going to be able to turn that around. Just leave it, because, you know, and this leads me on to another thing. What this whole sort of episode is about is me talking about, you know, taking things into consideration, thinking about other people, trying to turn it around, trying to sort of take on board other people's experiences. And maybe it's just me that thinks like this. Maybe nobody else would ever change team. You know, I'm sure that there are some of you guys out there who would. I'm sure there's some of you guys who don't give a damn about like what KD you finish at the end of the round. You don't care that if the weapon you have isn't like the best on the stats all the time. You know, there are some people out there who are just going to want to have strong games, and you know, all of that other stuff is not the primary thing. It's about sort of having a good experience with other people and having a kind of enjoyable, balanced fight. That's what I enjoy the most. I enjoy when it's a bit of push and shove. It's a bit like, you know, oh, they're on us, but they're not, and we're fighting back, and we're kind of, you know, those make the most interesting games. And when you have like round after round of Steamboat, you're like, oh, we're kicking their ass, we're really taking them down. Yeah, boring as hell. Like when I see people getting these big streaks, and I watch these videos, and I see people and they're like getting, you know, they're racking up kill after kill after kill, and it's like, you know, yeah, maybe you've got some good gun skill there, but those people are stupid. You know, anyone you can just, you know, you can move around, you're like bam, 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 bam. There's idiots. They're just running around in the open there. You know, it's just So put that to one side there. We're talking about changing around here. So, you know, in these kind of games, I like to try and put a bit of effort back in. I like to try and make a fight. Sometimes it's not going to go my way. I'm not going to have a good round every single time, but at least I give it a try. And, you know, this frustrates the hell out of me. Even people I know don't do it. Even people that I play with regularly on my server don't do it. They won't, you know, they don't see it from anybody else's perspective. They don't think of other people in the game. They don't think of like how miserable a game other people may be having. They just think of it from the perspective of, yeah, we're kicking ass. And I've been in teams and servers recently where we're fully imbalanced, you know, where we have like a deficit of maybe 5 players and nobody switches team. Now you're going to say, well, hey, why should they switch team? You know, they're in a squad, they made a squad with their friends, they shouldn't have to leave that team. It's true. But if you go on like that, where you're just literally grinding people into the ground and you don't even give them a chance, they're just going to leave the server. They're just going to be like, oh, this is pointless, and they leave. And then you've got no one to play with at all. You know, your game is basically over at that point. You don't even have anyone to fight against. And that, I think, is another thing that comes in, and that's another thing when it comes to Conquest. And people say, oh, if you're stupid enough to let yourself get spawn camped, you deserve it. You know, that's crap. Okay, maybe they didn't have like the best round, maybe they didn't have the best start to things or whatever, but you know, you shouldn't just push back to a spawn camp all the time and then just like literally crush those people into the ground, or you know, you leave them with one base and surround it and just kill anything that tries to get out of it. It's just miserable. Nobody's going to play a game like that. They're just going to quit. And you know, sometimes when I'm in a game like that, and I played one on the same crossing where I started off actually on the better team. I changed over because we were like devastating the other team so much. I was like, this is ridiculous. So I turned over. I tried to give them a bit of a chance. I tried to sort of fight back, and you know, it was hopeless because you know, I didn't have enough support. I tried my very, very best to turn it around, but it just didn't happen. But at least I gave it a go. And I'm not saying that you should do this for every single round, of course. You know, you shouldn't put yourself in a situation where every game you play is miserable. That would be ridiculous. You know, don't be a martyr. But, you know, try and think of other people a little bit, because we're all here to enjoy the game. And when you're literally just grinding people into the ground, you know, when you're crushing people, when you're owning people so hard, I just don't have anything for that. I don't have any time for people that think that that's acceptable. And, you know, as I say, maybe it's just me that thinks this way. Maybe I'm too accepting of the kind of principles that I think of when I'm trying to play the game. And, you know, maybe, I mean, for example, my tactical sort of the way that I think, a lot of people just don't even think that way. A lot of people just literally red dot, red dot, red dot, or they're like, oh, push up, push up, push up, push up, and they just push up, push up. They don't leave the base. And I tell you what, in a minute, this next base coming up is a perfect example of how some people don't think of tactical play at all. And we're going to take a look at that as we go into this next base, because the next base, it really should be foolproof. This next base is a really strong one, and I can only think of a couple of others which have the same kind of strength of defense. Maps like perhaps Metro, Grand Bazaar, some of those ones where you can really lock the enemy down. And I myself illustrate in this first section why it's a bad idea to push too hard too fast. My mentality, you know, thinking about this base next, was that I wanted to push forward. You know, they'd obviously overrun us for the last two, and I really, again, like the end of the second base, I really wanted to sort of fight, throw it back onto them, and sort of deter them from having so much momentum to push straight in. I mean, for Christ's sake, we've stolen their tank as well. We've got 2 tanks here. Now, it's got to be said, this is probably my worst play out of this whole map section, to be honest. I push up too fast, and I leave myself wide open. It's also a good example of why it's a bad idea to push too far forward in a tank in this section. It leaves you open to attack. Remember, there's corridors up the side, there's little alcoves that people can hide in and hop out on you. But again, this is just pure observational, you know, it's an observational error from my point of view. I pick up a kill there. Now watch the minimap here, look, left side of me, left side of me. Look, this guy's on the minimap, I'm just not looking. And he comes up next to me, he's C4ing me. I could have prevented that, and I just failed really hard on it. Really did. I should say as well that with the M4, I'd not really used it tons and tons, but I was starting to use it a bit more in this episode, and it took me a little while to get to grips with it. There's another map which I play with it on as well, which had some gameplay, but you'll see as well that I start to get a bit more to grips with the gun as it goes along. I haven't ever really used the M4 particularly much, so it took me a little while to kind of warm up with this gun. And the other thing as well, like I've said recently, is I haven't played so much Battlefield recently because I've had a lot going on in real life, so it's taken me you know, a good week of sort of warming back up. Managed to get the disarm there. I was quite pleased with that disarm because I managed to take out the 2 guys that armed it and were sort of defending the area, and to disarm it at the same time, pretty much solo. Just had like 1 small support help there. And dropping the mines down always. You never know whether you're going to get a mine kill or not, but it's always a good one to drop around this area, because if they pull in a tank onto that position, you can really get screwed. And I think in fact that's actually how we lose it in the end, because they pull in a tank perhaps, and our team just you know, are unable to take it down. So kind of around this distance is probably really where we want to be on this section right here. But watch generally as well where my team are in relation to things here. You can see at the moment they're keeping the tank back, and my guys is generally staying on the middle line. But what we see more often than not, is how people get kind of bored quickly. Now, again, that's not what I was doing when I first made my play to move forward. You know, it was right at the beginning, and so we had the opportunity there to make a bit of a play. Now, again, this is a bit of a key one here. I was very quick to sort of mark that guy. I wanted to try and get an idea of this area. Once they arm, can be dangerous, because look at all these rocks and stuff. You know, it's very hard to pick them out. Found the guy down in here, take him out, and get onto the objective as well. So I've managed to disarm both these objectives. Where the hell are my team? They're still up in the tunnels, they're racking the kills, you know, they're not really that interested in coming back to disarm the objective. In fact, look, they're still trying to steal tanks or whatever. Okay, so actually they're not stealing the tank, it's just our tank. But the point is that I had very little sort of support help to come back onto me there, and there was 1 guy behind me. He probably would have got the disarm if I had gone down. But look, they're pushing straight back in onto A as well. And I'm marking those targets, making people aware, because again, I want my team to know that they're in the area. And you can see the guys moving up here on the right hand side, 2, 3 guys coming in onto this one, so they know he's there. They got him locked down. If I hadn't have marked that guy, would anyone have seen him? Would he have lying prone and just waited for his whole squad to spawn in him? It's a possibility. But look, going back to B, there's nobody here, there's no one covering this. And look, it's interesting, isn't it, that as I move over here, there's one guy. Mark those targets again, and luckily it sort of makes everyone aware. But this is another thing that people do, and it's another thing that is, again, kind of lack of team awareness, lack of awareness of what other people are doing, and just focusing too hard on themselves, not looking at the overall game plan, leaving whole sections of a rush base empty. My god, it frustrates the hell out of me. I see it so often. Again, look at A. I mean, I know we got people in the tunnel, but it's still wide open again. You know, there's nobody sort of actually over in that area directly. And you really, really want to keep people kind of focused on both sides. Now, I was having a little look there at the back of our base because, you know, it's been quiet and I had a real strong feeling that there was going to be people back here on the back area. Because, you know, you notice how they kind of haven't been pushing too hard on the front. And I start to get the feeling that, you know, if they're not pushing the front, there's the possibility that they're going to be coming from behind. And so this is, again, another thinking. We know that people bring the helis in here. We know that when people bring the helis back down here, and look how the server's filled up now. And this is the point that perhaps, like, you know, if I hadn't switched team before, I'm not saying as well that it's purely down to me, but it's a kind of, it's a continuing sort of effort from everyone involved. Now, if I had not switched team earlier on, if we hadn't managed to stall them down a little bit more, would the server have continued filled up? Yeah, maybe it would. But it helps to kind of give, you know, it helps to kind of still balance things over. It helps if you know that you can make a contributing effort to sort of think, hey, you know, I'm going to challenge myself by changing team here. And as I say, it's not something to be done on every single game. Right, you shouldn't sort of martyr yourself every single game and be like, well, you know, we're having a good game here, but I'm going to definitely sort of, you know, change over and I'm going to sort of be on the team that's getting it handed out to them. Now, you don't want to do that all the time because, you know, you want to have a fun experience. And let me tell you, this is one of the games. I mean, sure, this game doesn't go the best, but it's by far and away one of the better games that I've had. At least my team are vaguely trying. I've been the last 2 weeks of play, I can count on maybe one hand even the number of quality games that I've had. It seems to have gone downhill, I swear, and I sometimes despair. I wonder where we're going with sort of FPS and kind of online communal gaming in general. It seems to be that if you want to get any kind of constructive game, public is never the place to be. It just, you can never get a public game, and you know, it's not a new thing. It's been the way it is for like 10 years. You know, whenever I've played online, public games, they're just trash, always. You know, always. You'll get like the odd game where it works out well, but that's only because you have people in there that are maybe squads that know what they're doing, or other people that are really focused the same as you, and that's going to be just pot luck at the end of the day. So you can see as well that really I'm kind of just staying back here holding this line. I'm not really pushing forward too much, and this is the kind of general play that I make. Whenever we're playing kind of Rush, or whether we're playing Conquest as well, I often take this role of kind of following the back. The reason is that I kind of am generally slightly more disciplined than other people. I don't mind sitting back, I don't mind not being the top of the board. I'm happy to sit back and just keep it covered, because I know that if they come through there, even if I don't kill them, I can get them marked, I can make my team aware. But if there's no one back here, then it's just a real bad situation to be in. And you can see we've got the tanks here. Starting to get the hang of my M4 a little more. M4 works, you know, it's a nice gun. Not really used it too much because it's kind of middle ground, and I always was very happy with some of the other weapons that I had for engineer class, and never was too fussed with it. But actually, yeah, it works out okay. You know, it's not the best for you know, long range I find, but sort of medium range combat, it seems pretty decent gun. So I've been running with this for a little bit. I'll probably run with it a little bit more. I'm trying to sort of, I tend to often dodge between guns maybe a bit too much, so I'm trying to sort of lock it down to a couple. Been enjoying the G53 on the engineer as well at the moment, which is really nice. Actually, I've been enjoying the, whatever it is, AKU, I don't know. You know what I'm like with names of things, I'm just like, what the hell is that called? I don't know. It's names mean so little to me in games, just especially when it comes to weapons. People love all that, you know, sort of, oh, it's the S23 model, but I don't care. Call it a banana, whatever. I tell you as well, something I've been doing is I've been dropping a lot of close quarter rounds in between sort of other games, and I try to play a kind of close quarter round every. Oh yeah, this made me. Oh, this baffled me. Look where this guy is. What's his plan? This guy, MSM 7 Zuglok. What's his plan here? He's just biding his time until he can spring his master plan of sitting back in the attacking base and not really helping his team at all. Anyway, I've cut forward about sort of, I don't know, 2-3 minutes here, just to, oh yeah, I pick up a nice fluky RPG kill on my way to disarm the BM com for the second time. Anyway, yeah, I just wanted to sort of skip forward here to where things are going completely tits up. As you can see, what they did was park an Humvee onto Alpha over there. Really sucked for us. And consequently, obviously you can see that's gone down. I'm trying to check this area, trying to keep this clear as best I can, because again, looking behind me, I literally got my squad mate, and that's it. Where the hell is the rest of our team? Where did they get cleared out? Well, it turns out that in the short time when I just spawned at the back of the tunnel there, I literally kind of was running inside. They'd all got wiped out, and it allowed them to park the Humvee on A. Then the guys came in, Humvee killed them. As I say, I skipped over that bit because literally it was a case of just me running up here, getting slaughtered by like 2 guys, and then I respawned back outside the tunnel, at which point A had gone down, and we took out the Humvee and came onto here. So that's a little update for that, what happened there. I just wanted to cut forward to here because we've already been in these tunnels for ages, and you can see that literally again, overwhelming presence on B here. Trying our best to kind of get down and do this. I wanted to clear the area here before we went for the disarm because there's multiple guys down in here. Taking the one, got the other guy, but again, look how many guys are in the tunnels. There's 4 or 5 guys out here and none of them pushed in. And for crying out loud, you can't say that I didn't try to disarm these things because I've already done it twice in the in this session already. So anyway, again, just kind of holding them back a little bit. But anyway, let's get back on topic just for this last base. We're not talking about specifically this round here. What we're thinking about is kind of getting out into other teams and trying to turn the team play around. I'd be really interested to hear what kind of experiences you guys have playing with kind of random public teams like this, whether you just try to avoid it at all costs and you only play with your one crew, you have your guys that you play with and you stick with it and you don't give a damn whether you steamroll the enemy or whether it's you try to keep it a balanced game. Would you ever consider doing what I often do, which is when I'm in my games of conquest right here on my server, I try to allow people, I try to not let games turn into a spawn camp. Okay, if we're dominating too hard, I say to the guys, hey, let them have one base, let them push out, let them try and have some kind of gameplay, because otherwise, it just goes all apart. There's another thing to consider as well, which is that if you dominate a team so hard that they cannot even leave their spawn, you think they're going to play another round with you? They're just going to quit, and then you'll have no one to play with, and the server will just die. It's much better to try and have a more rounded game where everybody has... I couldn't get under this thing. I was like, I'm not good. I should have just ran around. But anyway, it's much better to have a kind of more balanced gameplay, because then everybody's going to stay in the game. Sucked leading there. Again, it just comes down to this gun. Not used to it. Not used to its handling. I've been kind of, my gunplay has been kind of improving generally in the last sort of couple of weeks, but honestly it's really required quite a bit of a warm-up. It's something that's been sort of lacking quite severely, and especially some of the first games I got onto after having my break. Bear in mind that I had not really played Battlefield for about sort of 2 weeks or whatever, which doesn't sound like that long, but trust me, when you kind of suddenly get back into it, it really feels like a long time. You're like, oh, what the hell is going on here? And just feeling kind of comfortable. It takes you a while to just get back into that comfort of sort of moving and things. These goddamn helicopters really screwing us around. So yeah, as I say, and we didn't really sort of end up in a kind of good situation on this base, but I still felt good, and that was something that I always used to say with Battlefield. Missing all these goddamn chopper kills. This is something that I always used to say with Battlefield, was that I didn't care whether I lost or not. And it might surprise some people to hear me say that. It's true, it's not what is the most important thing for me. I like to win a lot. Like, the heli crash, what the hell was that? He just bailed the heli. Look, it was these two guys. They just bailed the heli so they could get in here. And I get M5K'd down. But, yeah, as I say, winning for sure, it's important to me, and I crave it a lot. I'm like, must win, must win, must win, objective, objective, objective. Yeah, these are the things that matter to me when I play. But it's not the end of the world if we lose, provided the loss is a constructive one. Provided the team has made an effort, and it was just not our day. We've made an effort, and that this was a long shot, seriously. Look at the height on this thing. But look, That was pretty close. If he'd have only been sort of back by a margin there, probably had the possibility of getting a hit on that guy. Anyway, provided everyone's kind of made some sort of effort, they've made a kind of contribution. And like, for example, I feel like this game did have a contribution. When we were on that second base, you know, right at the beginning, yeah, they rolled over us. It was a steamroll. But then the game sort of slowed, it started to turn around. The guys kind of suddenly were like, hey, you know, actually we can hold this. We can actually start to play. And you know, this is something else I say. It's not going to be the case every single game, but I have found through experience that when you're playing, if you try to lead by example, other people do follow your lead. And that it doesn't mean to say that I'm like, oh yeah, loser, you're like the best player, so everyone must want to be like you. No. That's not what I'm saying. All I'm saying is if you make an effort to, for example, disarm MCOMs, you know, throw yourself on that objective, actually get on it, try for it. If you use your mic, for example, which some people don't, they go, oh, well, nobody was talking, so I didn't use my own mic. What? Get on your mic. Tell people things. You know, talk about the game, talk about the enemy, talk about what you're doing, talk about where you're going, talk about your game plan, you know, all of these things. If you do that stuff, other people may think, hey, this guy's actually using the mic. Put team chat on if you're on the PlayStation. If not on your PC, well, you're kind of screwed if you don't know those people. But if you're on the PlayStation or the Xbox and you have team chat, you know, enabled, then you can, you know, hope that other people maybe have team chat enabled. Because people go, oh, well, they just won't have it on and nobody will hear you. Not always. You'll be surprised how many times I'm in a game, a random game, not my server game, where I start using team chat and all of a sudden I have a nice friendly guy and he's like, oh yeah, hey man, let's do this, blah blah blah. So, you know, it does happen, and it just requires the effort, the will. And I think that's really what this episode, this video is about today. It's about just sort of talking about people's willpower, and the fact that there are some things in the game that are more important than just racking those kills and going for the crazy win constantly, where you're sort of dominating them, where you're grinding them into the ground, like you think they're such bad players, you're like, yes, we are the best because we crushed them into the ground. It's like, you're not the best players, you're not the best players at all, you just happen to be against a team which has very little coordination, which means that you can use your momentum and the weight of force that your team has to sort of push them into the ground. That's all it is. It's not about you being like the best players ever. So, again, seriously, again, this goddamn heli couldn't hit this guy. Before anybody starts freaking out and going, oh, Luton, you suck with the tank, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, go back, check through some of my other videos. I got like a couple of helis in a row on Northside Canals with the tank job, so I'm not enabled to do these things sometimes. But, yeah, you know, it really is about that, and I think, I wish more people would take that into consideration. I wish more people would sort of think a little bit more openly about these things, and not just railroaded, and I don't think that YouTube helps. I think that YouTube, a lot of the time, from a lot of producers, sets the bad precedent of making people think that it's all about this, or it's all about that, and it's not. It's not about getting the stupid trolling kills. It's not about getting the stupid crazy kill streaks. It's about playing objective games. That's what Battlefield is. If you want to play the stupid kill streak, the stupid trolling stuff, there's plenty of other games which suit it better. I'm not saying don't ever do it on Battlefield. Christ, no. Okay, that's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is the core feeling of Battlefield is about the kind of objective tactical play. The whole bloody mechanic dynamic of the game itself is endeavoured, is suited towards that sort of style of play. It is. That's why you have the whole class setup, the symbiotic relationship of the classes, the way, you know, it's a kind of rock paper scissors effect, like Dashko said the other day, where you have the classes that work together and some that don't, and the tanks, you know, jets are good for taking out tanks, helis, tanks, etc. You know, Humvees, you have light vehicles, heavy vehicles, the classes work against them, they all have kit that work against them. It's all of that kind of thing. It's all designed, balanced to work together. It's not like some other games where you can kind of just mishmash your class into whatever, or you don't have classes at all, and maybe they're too rigid, but they're not really sort of balanced as such, etc. So it's all of these kind of things, and that's the thing that really frustrates me as well, is because it's bigger than that. And your experience should be bigger than that. And when people focus too much on one thing and they don't think about other people, that's what really kills it for me. So I want to hear what you guys think about this today. Have you been in a situation, like I've said, where you end up switching teams because you actually want to help? Comically, what was it we were in? I think it was this game or another game I played where, funnily enough, the guy that, you know, he joined in my squad and he was like, whoa, this team's losing. I saw him change himself to the other team because the other team was winning. And it's like, oh my god, seriously. When people do that, it's off the chart, you know. They're like, oh, this team's not doing very well. I'll change over to the other team that's dominating because that'll be much better. It was kind of funny that he still finished with a vastly negative KD though. So that obviously changing over to the superior winning team didn't help him that much. Oh yeah, you can see me rage killing this sniper right here. I was going to go for the knife and then I thought, yeah, you know, knifing never works out for me. I usually go for the knife and then they turn around and just like, ah. Well, funnily enough, that's what happens with me a lot of the time. All the time. What was it? I was playing like Rush Metro or something, or Metro Conquest, I think. And I was on the A base. We were trying to take the A base. And I could hear behind me. I was like, are those there are footsteps behind me. Spun around. There's a guy coming right for me. He'd been following me around the building. I was like, ah, you're going down. No dog tags for you. But anyway. So what do you think is basically what I would like to hear off the back of this episode. Do you think it's, you know, do you think people should be kind of expected, obligated to help balance the team? What the hell was that, by the way? By the end here, it's just like gunplay went out the window. It's like, spray the gun. Da, da, da. It just sucked really hard. But yeah, as I say, really what I'm thinking about here is the whole kind of switching teams over, helping teams that are not doing so well, balance the server gameplay. If you're in a team that's totally dominating, would you ever change over? Do you think that's really something that people should ever be expected to do? Do you think it's acceptable to just go in a steamrolling team and just stay there? As I say, I don't think it's constructive. I don't think it's constructive for those players, and I don't think it's constructive for other people. I'll tell you another reason really quickly at the end here, and this is perhaps the most telling reason of all, and this comes from back from World of Warcraft. I would often play with people and we would steamroll because our team was very strong in World of Warcraft. We often play for days without a loss, even against very good teams. But here's the thing, if you win constantly, and you often win against teams which maybe aren't as good as you, okay, players can get slack, they can get lazy, and before you know it, suddenly they actually do come up against a good team, and all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're losing, I'm tired, I've got to go, I've got to have dinner, you know, I've had enough of playing today. Suddenly, all that enthusiasm goes out the window. And it's because they've come up against a team which is just a little bit tricky. And this used to frustrate, I'm like, oh yeah, we just won 7 games in a row and we had a bit of a difficult game and now you want to leave? Yeah. I totally believe that, you know, your intentions for that are all because you're sort of, you know, your intentions for that are totally because you want to go and not because you just got your ass handed to you. Yeah, I always believe people when they say that, like, oh yeah, we had 6 games where we steamrolled and this one was like really hard and we didn't win, but yeah, my food's ready, I've got to go. Yeah, I totally believe you. Thanks for watching today, guys. Interested to hear your overall thoughts on this gameplay. Try it out for yourself. I'll see you next time.